Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hammer. Thank you for joining us for this special Valentine's Day program. I'm Claudia Bester. I'm the Director of Public Programs, and I'm very pleased to welcome Liz Goldwyn back to the Hammer. Liz is an author, filmmaker, and the founder of The Sex Ed, an educational platform and podcast dedicated to sex, health, and consciousness in the digital age. Beginning with her first job as a 13-year-old intern at Planned Parenthood Los Angeles, Goldwyn has dedicated much of her life to exploring the depths of human sexuality through her books and films. She spent over 2 decades researching and studying the topic, and in 2005 wrote and directed the HBO documentary Pretty Things about burlesque and striptease. She then went on to write a book on the same topic called The Last Generation of American Burlesque Queens, and then a novel called Sporting Guide set in the world of vice and prostitution. Her new book, Sex, Health, and Consciousness, came out in October, and we have copies available for purchase in the theater lobby. The digital platform she founded, called The Sex Ed, seeks to cultivate a deeper understanding, openness, and acceptance of sex, sexuality, health, and consciousness. The Sex Ed is a holistic and intersectional source for dynamic sex education tools that inform, inspire curiosity, and provide audiences with a safe ecosystem to ask questions and seek advice from sex experts around the world. Her short films include Underwater Ballet, LA at Night, The Painted Lady, Dear Diary, Cello Dream, and apropos for tonight, Love Meditation. Liz has also contributed to publications like the New York Times Magazine, the Financial Times, British Vogue, and Vanity Fair. She was the New York editor of French Vogue, had a column in the Japanese magazine Hanatsubaki, and was a guest editor at Town & Country. She's also a fashion icon whose incredible sense of style has graced the pages of practically every magazine and newspaper. She was hired as a consultant and curator for Sotheby's newly created fashion department while she was still in college, and she's been commissioned as an artist and designer by MAC Cosmetics, Van Cleef & Arpels, Altamont Apparel, and Le Bon Marché. Here in the museum sphere, she worked with Thelma Golden on a Patrick Kelly retrospective at the Brooklyn Museum of Art and curated a documentary program at LACMA. And in 2014, she founded Vintage Vanguard with partner Karen Elson, which is a philanthropic foundation for women's issues. And tonight, she'll be taking us on an inner journey accompanied by Soulei Goe. Soulei is a somatic and intuitive healer and a yoga teacher who incorporates sound and movement into her spiritual practice. So now please join me in welcoming Liz Goldwyn and Soulei Goe.
Hi. Thank you guys for braving what I hear is an epic windstorm to be here with us tonight on Valentine's Day. And thank you to my beautiful sound bowl practitioner and friend, Soulei Goe, who's traveled all the way from Kauai to be here with us. And thank you to Claudia Bester and the Hammer Museum for providing me the opportunity to be here tonight and speak to you about my favorite subjects, sex, love, and romance. You might know the Hammer as a premier destination for contemporary art, but they are super horny here. This is actually my 4th time here at the Hammer. They just can't get enough of sex, it turns out. So before we start tonight, I'd like us all to ground down into this space that we're in together. So if you have your legs crossed, I'll ask you to uncross them. And we're going to take a few deep breaths. But before we do so, most of us tend to take very shallow breaths, just right here in our chest. And for these deep breaths, we're going to be going a little deeper. So these breaths, we're going to start at the base of our perineum. You may know it as the taint. It's located around your anus. So we're going to take our breaths all the way from the base of the perineum up through our belly, through our heart, through our chest and our throat. And we're going to exhale slowly all the way back down. And we're really going to pay attention to our genitals with this breath. So we're going to do this together 3 times. Are you guys ready? Yeah. Okay, let's go. And feel that breath travel all the way up through your heart, through your chest, through your throat, and back down, all the way down through your belly, your genitals, your perineum. Okay, let's take a second one. And a third. Beautiful. It may seem odd to you that an evening focused on sex and love starts with breath work, but this practice of tuning in to our bodies is a cornerstone of my philosophy and the 3 tenets of my company, the Sex Ed, which are sex, health, and consciousness. I've spent close to 3 decades, which is wild when I think about it, exploring sexuality, both professionally and personally. And every experience in my private life, as well as in my academic and anecdotal research, has cemented my belief that integrating mind, body, and spirit are essential for sexual wellness. We tend to disassociate our body, and particularly our genitals, from our mind and soul, putting sex into a narrow box that doesn't allow us to fully express ourselves or tap into the awesome power of sexuality as a source of energy and creativity. When it comes to sexuality, there's always more to learn, even for someone like me who spends all day studying the subject. More education and open communication around intimacy and sex lead to a healthier culture and healthier self. I believe that we stand on the threshold of entering into a new paradigm that will greatly expand our ability to align more truthfully with our deepest desires, all of which will help us to better embody pleasure. I want to provide you with power. The power to make informed decisions, to enlarge your sexual repertoire, to have better orgasms, even to expand your spiritual consciousness through heightened awareness of your body and your sexuality. The moment of orgasm, like a powerful meditation, breathing technique, or even a mind-altering substance, can be transcendence, far beyond what you may have experienced thus far. I'm talking over and above the ecstasy of lust and release. In New Age circles, you may have heard the term vibrations or vibes before, as in, man, she's really giving me some vibes, or that house has bad vibes. Vibration in this context is basically just another word for energy, an impression that someone or something gives off. You all have a vibe, and I'm feeling it right now. We're going to get deeper into that vibe tonight. So if we want to experience transcendent sex, we have to pay attention to the vibrations we give off and that we receive. I don't let people wear shoes in my house personally, because vibrations, they're walking around the streets of LA with all sorts of weird ass vibrations on there, and I gotta be careful in my house. And I'm equally careful after a lot of trial and error with my sexual energy, because I want to protect the work I've done to get to this place. While sex is a very powerful vibration, I think we can all agree, I believe that love is the highest vibration we can be operating from, which is why I appreciate each and every one of you for being here today on this often corporate hallmark holiday of Valentine's Day. Because too often we look outside of ourselves for love and romance. We may struggle with giving and receiving love because we're pouring from an empty cup. We ought to be teaching the art of falling in love with ourselves before we give that love away. So many of us learn the false belief that another's love and approval will make us whole or healed. that our pain, anger, sadness, loneliness will be solved by the right person or outside circumstance. When the truth is, if we don't actually love ourselves, how will we have enough love to share? How will we be able to discern what type of love or relationship is best for us if we just accept whatever comes along because it's better than nothing, better than being alone? Imagine being so dazzled by love for yourself that you find even your weaknesses beautiful, dazzled by your body's miraculousness. We're going to do that exercise together, that motorboating, in a minute. Grateful every day for all the ways in which you're unique. Loving all your vulnerabilities as you might love those parts of another, because we don't fall in love with people for their perfections, but for their flaws. What if we saw ourselves as a beautifully decorated, icing-laden cake with romantic love simply the cherry on top? We all have the capacity to increase our ability to love and eroticize ourselves. It begins by slowing down and becoming mindful or conscious of how our hearts, bodies, and yes, even our genitals are feeling in this present moment. To honor whatever we're feeling, whether that's shame, fear, taboo, awkwardness, anticipation, excitement. Because all of these conflicting and sometimes complicated emotions are a part of being human. And what could be more human and sometimes messy and awkward than love and sex? My intention for this evening is to expand the way that each of you think about love, romance, and sex. Collectively, we tend to silo our sexuality away from our mind, body, and spirit instead of integrating it. This strikes me as counterintuitive, especially as sex and love drive almost every aspect of human existence and decision-making. From the clothes you put on, to the places you go, to the people you're attracted to the jobs you take, to where you travel. My philosophy around integrating sex, health, and consciousness is to look at sexual energy as creative energy. It's life force energy. It's prana, it's mana, it's chi. Sex is so much more than an act that requires a partner, the goal of an orgasm, or even penetration. And the more that we can integrate our consciousness or spirituality, however we define that, into our sexuality, the more we can expand our capacity for pleasure and experience true transcendence when we do have sex, and increase our capacity for love in all forms. I believe that most of our ideas around sex and love are based around a broken system that don't often mirror what we may be yearning for in our most intimate relationships, including the relationship we have with ourselves. It's time to create new love stories for ourselves and new ways of relating to each other with radical honesty, respect, communication, and an adventurous spirit. Because, don't knock it till you tried it, is what I like to say. Tonight, I'm going to guide us in a series of breath and sound exercises designed to help explore a more expansive idea of love, followed by a sound bath by Soulei, my beautiful partner, to reflect on whatever comes up for you without judgment, because we are so good at criticizing ourselves. I'm especially good at it. I think it's actually my best trait. Using our breath and our voices is a really simple way to move energy and get us out of our head and into our bodies. These exercises that we're going to do are adapted from my new book, Sex, Health, and Consciousness, which is chock full of practices that are all free to do to help integrate the ideas that each chapter outlines from dismantling what we think of as normal and our compare and despair responses when it comes to our bodies, love, relationships, and sex, to notice whether we're using sex or other people to fill a void within ourselves, to honoring our traumas, whether they be personal, ancestral, or collective, to questioning the sex education, political, and medical systems that we've all been operating under for centuries now, to asking questions about what love is and how fully we are present for love in ourselves or showing up for other people, to consider the ways in which we communicate in relationships, use technology, consume pornography, experience states of pleasure and bliss around masturbation, menstruation, and manifesting, the 3 M's. I also introduce a variety of breath work in this book, including orgasm breathing, the basics of Tantra, bondage as a tool for healing, facing life transitions, and practices for dying. We are sexual beings from the moment we come onto this planet until we leave it. And each of us has a sexual identity that's as unique to us as our fingerprints. And the exciting thing about sex and our sexuality is that it's always evolving. So it's never too late to learn. It's never too late to explore new things. It's never too late to develop a happier, more relaxed, flowing relationship with yourself and your sexuality. So, you ready to take the first step together? All right. So, we're going to begin by feeling our feet on the floor. And let's put our left hand over our heart and our right hand over our bellies. And don't try to suck in your belly and look all cute. Really feel your belly and your flesh meeting your hands. Really feel your heart against your palm. Feel your belly and your heart expand into your hands as you breathe in and breathe out. Notice where you might be holding any tightness or resistance in your body, and try to send more breath into those spaces. Now, with your hands as they are, and I'm going to explain this first before we do it, we're going to take a deep inhale, and as we exhale, we're going to make this sound. As I do this, I'm feeling the sound vibrate against my hands, heart, and belly, calming my nervous system. I'm literally shhing myself the way that we would calm a baby. So let's do this together 3 times. And you can let yourself be as long or loud or soft as you want to be. And you can close your eyes if you'd like to. So let's begin together by taking a deep in breath. Breathe in again. And a 3rd time. Notice your belly and your heart and your hands. How do they feel? Are they tingling, beating faster, slower? How about your genitals? How do they feel? Are they tingling, dry, sticky, wet, numb, uncomfortable? Has anyone ever asked you this question outside of a gynecologist or doctor's office? Does it make you feel a little awkward that I'm asking you to bring attention to your genitals? However you feel, it's okay, it's normal. And checking in regularly with how your genitals are feeling outside of a sexual situation or a doctor's office is the first step to expanding your consciousness, pleasure, and relationship with your sexual health. Okay, I think we've broken the ice. You're starting to think about your genitals. Step one. And it's important to break the ice when you're talking about sex because it can be a really uncomfortable topic, especially to discuss publicly like I am now. And even being aware of your own body can feel uncomfortable. I get it. That's like why I like to remind people all the time, and myself too, to approach sex with a sense of play and release expectations of what you think it should feel or sound like. Okay, let's try another exercise. This one is really silly. I just did it a few moments ago when I stumbled on the word. I don't even remember. Does anyone remember what the word it was? It started with an M. What was it? Miraculousness. Fuck. How the fuck do you say that word? I wrote it. Okay, miraculousness. This is the sound we're going to make together. And it's a really good noise to make when you stumble on a word in the middle of a public reading like I'm doing now, even when it's a word that you wrote in your own book. And I've also used it often when I'm directing. I've given it to actors when they're stumbling on a line reading and I can see they're getting stuck in their head. So you may have heard this exercise called motorboating. Not the kind where you put your face between someone's breasts and go, but that's essentially what we're going to be doing. And I guarantee you, once you learn this, you can find yourself using it in lots of situations when you stumble, and it really diffuses the tension. So the sound we're going to make is literally any version of. Can you guys all do this? Okay, so let's do it together. Let's take a breath in. I think we can do better. Let's do that. Let's do that again. Let's let ourselves go with this one. Okay? Let's take another breath in. Okay, one more time because I can see one of my friends here. It's like on the tip of their tongue. Okay, one more time. Okay. You can smile and do it. Let's try. No, you're right. You cannot smile and do it. Okay, you learn something new every day. Okay, do you feel a little looser, a little more relaxed? Good. Okay, for this next exercise, we're going to actually be getting even more vocal. Because sound, like sex, is a great way to move energy through our bodies. And you may notice that when you're in the height of pleasure, you or a partner makes unconscious sounds, and they're sexy, right? Like you can't control them. And it's kind of good if you're in a safe place to get a little out of control. So this one is really fun, and I invite you to play with it and express yourself as you feel called. I'll do it for you first. What we're going to do is, after a deep breath, we're going to exhale, and we're going to say, ah. Yeah, if you want to say, oh my God, just, throw it in there. And you know what? If you feel like laughing, please laugh, because laughing is sexy. And this is supposed to be fun. You're not going to get graded on this. There's no test scores being given out. And this can be as long or loud or soft as an ah as you feel. You can be like this. Ah. Or it can be like, ah. Just have fun. All right. Are we ready? We're going to take a deep breath in. Ah. Oh, yeah. You guys are good. All right, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Ah. One more time. One more time. We can do it. Ah. Notice your feet on the floor, or the palms of your hands. How do they feel? Good. What about your genitals? How do they feel? They feel the same, or do they feel different? That's good. However they feel is all good. Just notice it without judgment. All right. Do you guys feel a little bit different in your bodies than when you sat down? Okay, good. Which brings me to an exercise that gets me really excited. Okay. Don't worry, it's not scary. I love this one because we actually get to use our voices together collectively to create a sound bowl. And the sound waves of our voices together, toning this vowel, will help us ground into our body and consciousness right here, right now, together. So I'm going to show you this sound first before we do it. We are going to make this sound. Oh. And this time we really want the sound to last as long as possible from each of our voices so they echo against each other and create a vibratory bubble of juicy expansiveness, of ass shaking and hip twirling readiness. Are you guys with me? Can we do it? So it's not an om, it's not a yoga, it's O. Okay. I believe in us. I believe in us, and I think you guys will enjoy the sound that this makes. So let's take a deep breath in. Wow, that was amazing. Let's do that 2 more times. Let's take another breath in. Wow, I really felt that one in my chest. Okay, let's do one more. Take a few moments to notice your heartbeat and your breathing. How do you feel? Has anything shifted in your body? These exercises we just did together are available to you free anytime as tools to settle your nervous system, to bring you back into your body when you find yourself becoming dysregulated or overwhelmed, experiencing panic, fear, shame, anxiety, whether in a sexual situation or just being a human being here on this planet. So hopefully by now you're feeling a little bit more in tune with your body. To help further integrate whatever's come up for you during these exercises and explore how expansive love, especially when it comes from within, can feel, I invite you to close your eyes, drop in, and let the sound waves from Soulei's magical crystal bowls wash over you. You'll hear my voice throughout her playing, giving you a few prompts to marinate on as you go within. There's no need to respond, and there's no correct answer. Just some ideas to explore and notice how they make you feel in your body. What is love? How do you give love? receive love. What do you expect from love? What is self-love? How can you cultivate more love? With your eyes closed, take a deep breath and slowly exhale. Gently wiggle. Gently wiggle your fingers and your toes. Take your time to blink open your eyes and come back to this space that we're all in together. Notice how your body feels. Notice how your genitals feel. Are you more relaxed than when you sat down? Do you notice how much sexier you all look? Don't take it from me. Let's turn to the person on the right and left of us and give them your sexiest smile. Don't be shy. There's no expectations. This is just an exercise. It's all about spreading that love and increasing your vibration. If there's one takeaway I want you to leave here with tonight, it's to begin by looking within for the love that you seek, because you are the master of your pleasure. You are the master of your healing. And you are the master of experiencing divine love, intimacy, and sex. Thank you all so much for getting hippy-dippy acid trippy with me tonight and participating in this love meditation in honor of Valentine's Day. And thank you to Soulei for blessing us with your sound vibrations. And I'd love to open up the floor if anyone has any questions. Please don't be shy. You can ask away. I'm not legally allowed to call on anyone, apparently. Museum policy. So there's microphones in the audiences on both sides. So if anyone has a question for me about anything relating to sex, health, and consciousness, please don't be shy. You just have to raise your hand, and someone with a mic on either side will call you. I'm again not allowed to pick anyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you both so much for this generous offering. I'm curious, Liz, your experience of love and if you feel like culturally love is different in the West versus love in the East or love in other parts of the world.
Well, I can only speak about the West, although I have worked a lot in Japan. Um, I think our sense of love needs a rehaul. We need a PR rebrand of love. And I was actually really happy to see, even on social media this Valentine's Day and with marketing campaigns from corporations, that there seemed to be a trend towards talking about love in terms of self love and love of community and love of friends, because romantic and sexual love is amazing, but it's just a piece of the pie. And I think we're really missing, and we all need a lot more love in our lives, that we tend to depend on a singular, like romantic or sexual partner for, and they cannot fulfill all of that for us. And I think it's really a time in the world right now where we need to be finding our community and expanding love in our community, and love in all forms. And I think that that's globally. And I think in other countries where people are more community focused, I think there's more of a sense of love than maybe we feel in Los Angeles. Like during the height of pandemic, people were out there getting toilet paper for themselves, right? It wasn't like love thy neighbor. What does your neighbor need? Maybe that's more common in other cultures or in small towns, but I think we need to bring some of those practices in even in the middle of big cities, because it's not like, with climate change and everything, this shit is going to get better. So we really need to figure out who our community is and figure out how we can express love in everyday life, in random acts with strangers, even random acts of love. Just put a quarter in someone's parking meter when it's about to go out.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you guys both so much. This was very eye-opening. Specifically, talking about the meditation, one of the questions that you asked was, what is love? How do you receive love? How do you give love? And something that was surprising to me was that I found that love that I can give is conditional sometimes, and that makes me feel selfish and perhaps not as far along on this self-love journey and selfless love journey that I would like to be on. And I wonder if you have any words of advice for moments where we feel like we're not being as loving as we could be to others and to ourselves, if we feel like emotions of frustration or anger or condition coming up. And if you've noticed that in your own journey, or if you've heard of other people experiencing that in their journey.
All the time, because we're humans and we're going to fuck up all the time. And, love is, oh, gosh. If we had a pill to make us all perfect, loving, beatific creatures, we wouldn't be human, right? So, yes. And I think it's very difficult, because when you love someone else in a romantic relationship or partnership, you're going to come up against their, traumas, your own traumas. You're both going to get triggered. There's all this inner child stuff. And, all of us are just, there's no such thing as like being healed or being perfect in this process. You're just where you're at. So when those moments of frustration arise, be loving to yourself and be like, I'm doing the best that I can for today. And, sometimes you just actually have to scream, fuck it. Like, I do that all the time. It helps if you're not around like neighbors or, you can do it in a pillow. Sometimes it helps if you can write those things down. I think it's really good if you're finding yourself coming up against criticism of yourself, because that's something I have definitely struggled with a lot in my life. As I said, I'm really good at being critical of myself. To really force yourself to do things like, for example, if you're being critical of your body, to like look at yourself in the mirror and force yourself to name 3 things that you really love about your body, or even look at the areas that you like are troubled by and meditate on that. Like, that's your meditation. Why do I not love my muffin top and my stretch marks and this like 6th toe that I have? you know and look at the other person in them too, because it's not like you wouldn't be mean to someone else in that way, right? So almost those moments of anger or frustration, like that's your meditation, if that helps. Anyone else have a question?
Yes, hello. Thank you
Hi.
so much for sharing just this wisdom. And to piggyback off of that, I noticed that sometimes there is a tendency of wanting to disassociate when receiving love. And so I was wondering if there was an exercise or a sound that you find to be an ally to drop into your body, to allow your capability to be able to receive in a greater way to be expanded. Because I think sometimes when we hit those tender moments of being able to be seen in vulnerability, there's that easy jump out of your body, like, oh God, this is too close. So, is there something or a technique that you find in your practice that helps you ground in your body so you can actually expand that capability of being able to be seen and loved when receiving love?
That's a really good question. And I have definitely found myself in moments, even in friendships, when I have like a super evolved friend. I have one sitting in the audience right now who I'm looking at. And she'll say to me things like, she will sometimes get real in my face and like ask me to name my feelings or in a loving way, because she wants me to experience more love. And I get so uncomfortable. And then I kind of notice that those things of where I'm feeling uncomfortable, I want to skirt past that. Um, I think if you're doing it solo as like a meditation of how I can receive more love, you can be a bit more abstract with it. Like, you can literally close your eyes, and I use a lot of light, I think, visualizations when I'm meditating. So that could be a feeling, that could be a place that you really love. It could be somewhere in nature. It could be a warmth. It could be like a family member or an animal, that maybe like, could be an animal that loves you unconditionally, and you can kind of close your eyes and tune into what it feels like to have, like, feel their fur against your skin, or, or a smell like that, and kind of imagine that washing over you. And in the practice of doing that with other human beings, you just have to acknowledge that it's going to be uncomfortable sometimes, you know? And again, practice makes perfect. You're welcome. Okay, I'll take 2 more questions if anyone has one.
I'll add a male voice.
Yes.
uh, kind of piggybacking on her question about different love in different cultures, I wondered if, obviously, when we're talking a lot about sex, tantra and all that, that's very rooted in, South Asian cultures, perhaps. That's where the root of that is. And I wondered if in your book you actually credit or explore that element of where it's coming from. That was just one quick question. But the second question I had was, um, how do we navigate a healthier sexual understanding and exploration in a society that is so over sexualized and uses sexuality to sell us, paper towels and napkins and everything, right? Um, so yeah, that's my second question. Thank you.
That's a great question. So in the book, I do get into Tantra, and I do talk a lot about Eastern philosophy in terms of the duality of yin yang, or what we have like previously labeled as masculine and feminine energies or modalities. And I talk about Tantra, but I also say that I'm not an expert on Tantra because it would take many lifetimes to be so. And what we think of, I think in the West, we want like some soundbite, like instant gratification, like girl boss, millennial pink, Tantra, tied in a bow. And it doesn't work like that, because to practice real Tantra, it requires both parties to really do a lot of inner work first to come before you can come to the table in a sexual sense. So it is actually really about a spiritual practice, muscle control, breath work, some of the things that I do introduce a lot of these things in the book. Your second question is great. And I think it's, I can only speak from my experience. It's like a constant process of unlearning and deconditioning in every sense. Gosh, I mean, that's such a great question, because it's very hard to maintain your center when you're in a culture and a world that's constantly giving you the exact opposite message. And I find a lot of people, in a chapter I wrote called Filling the Void, I really tried to break down so that we all can have that moment of thinking, am I doing this because I'm really feeling some like greater desire or purpose or experiencing pleasure within myself? Or am I doing this because someone else expects it? I think it's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm lonely and unhappy. I just want to feel desired by someone else. I think like just the simple act of tuning into your intention and like always reminding yourself that you're your best guru with all the noise going on, that like no one else knows what's best for you than you. I don't know what's best for you. And anyone who tells you that they have it all figured out, whether that's a commercial or a superstar, or is full of shit. Because the first thing that we should all admit is that we're all in this process of learning how to do that. And again, like what works for you in terms of, I think some people can really flow with casual sex, and that's great for them. And they can have like loving, healthy, respectful, boundaried casual sex. Like I know for me personally, as I said about the shoes in my house, I can't do that because it doesn't work for me. So that also required a long time for me, who's someone who's like counts among her best friends some of the, you know, you know, super freaky deaky people in the world and porn stars without any judgment, to be like not comparing myself, with them, not judging it, but also being like, okay, I'm a little more vanilla and prude, and that's okay for me. And it's very hard to get comfortable with yourself. It really is. But that's the practice, right? So I hope that answered your question. All right, I'm going to take one more. I'll take two more because I see two hands. Even though I didn't show any favor.
Hi, Liz. Hi, Soulei. Thank you so much for this experience. I'm curious about how we as individuals and we as a society can take one small step, let's say this month, to destigmatize conversations, the taboo around sex. And this is both from the individual perspective and also the societal collective perspective. How might we do that?
We're doing it right now, baby. I mean, we're in a cultural institution in Los Angeles the Hammer Museum having this really open dialogue and about these things. I think we're doing it right now. I think it's also even, I mean, I think we really need to be doing it more in our relationships because most people are just having sex and not really talking about it outside of the bedroom. So I think it starts by really tackling like one uncomfortable conversation that maybe you like are kind of dreading having, or there's something you're curious about but you're sort of worried about what your partner or someone else might think, or maybe a secret desire that you've always had but you've never said out loud. It could be by like sharing that with someone you trust. It could be simple. I think we'd like to make things a lot more complicated than they have to be.
I'm nervous asking questions usually, but I'm going to frame this question in the notion of queerness because love is often framed in, as you were saying, the yin and the yang, heteronormativity in this sort of sense, and thinking about human beings being on a gradient. And so there was something very liberating about being in the sound bath in a room of people. And so, like, what advice would you give in thinking about queerness or love or collective expansion in the way that you're framing all of this?
That's a great question. So in one of the later chapters of my book, a couple of chapters, I'm talking about transit. There's a chapter called Transitions, and there's a chapter called The Next Frontier, where I really talk about how I feel like we're moving. We're not there yet, obviously, but I feel like we're moving so far beyond the binary. And that when it comes to love and when it comes to queerness and when it comes to this idea of yin and yang, I think that's where we really got to go into our spirituality. That's really where I feel like, for me, what's interesting about sexuality and queerness and however and gender and however we identify is to move more into a consciousness or spirituality based thinking around it, which is like more porous, right? It's more colorful. It's not so black and white. Like it's, I don't even know if I have the right words, I guess, to talk about love in that sense. Because I feel like when I look at the way that we sell love, that shit just feels so like fucking 1982. And actually I spend a lot of time in on the Hawaiian Islands and around like surf culture. And a lot of the ways that people talk about sexuality and love and gender there is very 1982. Also, in fact, it almost like slaps me in the face a lot of the time to hear some of the like slurs and things that are thrown about. And so it's especially like being in those spaces that I find myself using like analogies of like nature and God to have conversations with like 12-year-olds who are saying things they've just repeated from their parents. And that's like right now the work I'm doing is like how do you meet people where they're at and not dismiss them because they just haven't had the education or the experience or the diversity of people around them, and how do you make them understand things in ways that they can relate to. And so again, I find myself turning to like more expansive consciousness, spiritual notions of like love and queerness. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much, and thank you for your questions.